Okay, one last thing we want to talk about today is plurals. How do we take a singular word and convert it into a plural? There are a few rules, or not too many, and so it's not going to be really taxing for you. But how do we make a plural? Let's talk about something, okay? Um, if the singular form of word ends in an A, okay, then all you do is you change the A to an AE to form a plural, okay? So if I have a word, a noun that ends in an A, okay, then just the plural to make it plural is going. The singular noun would end in a. To make it plural, you add an ae. Let's look at an example of that. Let's take plur. Okay, plur means long. Pleura. Pleura is the membrane that covers the lungs. Okay, that's a pleura, and that'd be singular. It's the membrane. Okay, so if I was going to take two different pieces of pleura, I would just take the a and add an AE, so plure. Okay, so if the word ends in an A, the singular noun ends in an A, you change it to an AE. Piece of cake. If the singular form of a noun ends in an AX, change the AX to ACES. AX gets converted to ACES. Let's look at that particular example of that. Thorax. Thorax means the chest. Means the chest. Okay. So if there were multiple chests, okay, all we do is change the AX, ACES, so thoraces. Thoraces would be multiple chests. So if the noun ends in AX, change the AX to ACES. ACES. If the singular form of the noun ends in an IS, all you do is change the IS to an ES. IS to ES. Let's look at what we're talking about. Crisis. Okay. So let's take crisis. So crisis would be a singular noun. Change that ISIS to crises. ES. So I've gone from crisis as a singular to crises as a plural. So piece of cake, easy. Not much of a problem there. Crisis to crises. And when noun ends in an IS, change the IS to an ES. If the singular form of a noun ends in an IX, an EX, or a YX, change the IX, EX, or YX to ICES to form the plural. Let's look at some examples of that. Appendix. Appendix is, a little vestigial organ, which means it might have had some use before, has no use now. Okay, basically, when the colon starts, there's a small little wormy-like tube at the bottom of the colon, which is basically called the appendix. When all things that don't get digested very well get jammed down in their bacteria, sometimes have a picnic, and they go hog wild and cause an inflammation. It's called appendicitis. So appendix would be the singular form name of a noun of that particular organ. So, but also on the colon, there are globs of fat that hang all over the colon. And each of the little globs of fat would be also called appendix. So sometimes when we look at all of these, they're appendices. So you'll find all these little globs of fat would be called appendices. So IX is changed to ICES. ICES. Okay. Apex. So now here it's an AXEX. Apex is anything that comes to a point. Okay. If I look at the lung, let's draw it this way. If I look at a lung looks like this. Okay. This area up here at the top is called the apex. If I look at the heart comes in like this. Point down here, this point down here would also be called the apex. So the apex would be singular, okay? If I had the right lung over here and then the left lung, okay, sitting right here, and I had apex here and the apex here, so now I have plural, I would change that apex, apices, apices. So EX goes and becomes an apices. So apex to apices, piece of cake, easy, not a problem there. Singular form of a word ends in an O-N, change the O-N to an A. Now this one got sort of messed up here. Let's look at this. Ganglia. Ganglia would be the plural. Ganglion, I-O-N, would be singular. So ganglion, let me write that down. Ganglion. Ganglion would be singular. Ganglia would be plural. Okay. Ganglia, sometimes when a bunch of nerve cell bodies come together, it's called a ganglia, okay? Or ganglion. On the back of the body, if you open up the chest, if you have a cadaver at home or something like that, I don't know where you got it from. But if you open up the chest, took all the lungs out, on the back of the wall, on the back wall of the chest, there'd be look like little beads of pearls that are down the back, and that's called the dorsal root ganglion. What happens is actually see, or excuse me, called the autonomic ganglion along the back, which is basically all these little lumps of cell bodies. So ganglion would be singular, ganglia would be plural. There's the ganglion. So the ganglion becomes ganglia, plural. If the singular form of the word ends in a um, change the um to an a to make it a plural. Bacterium would be singular, okay? One single bacteria would be called bacterium, okay? But if I have multiple bacterium, I end up with bacteria. So a big, large group of bacterium would be called bacteria. I've changed the as a singular form to a to na, which is basically the plural form. Bacterium to bacteria. If the singular form of a word ends in a us, you change the us to an I. Change the us to an I. Let's look at an example here. Thrombus, thrombus, thrombus. Thrombus is a clot, okay? So if I have one clot, it's called a thrombus. However, if I have multiple clots would be called thrombi. That's an I. I don't know why this didn't space very well. Thrombi. So I. Okay, so change US to an I. Interesting, when they talk about commercials, again, I don't watch a lot of commercials because I'm sitting there and, sort of like criticizing and critiquing all the commercials. But we look, there's the one commercial about atrial fibrillation. I'm living with AFib. I'm living with AFib. I'm living with AFib. One of the problems with AFib is, and we'll talk more about this in the cardiovascular section, instead of the heart beating the way it's supposed to, it wiggles. And that wiggling is called fibrillation. What that does is it causes the current of blood inside the heart, instead of going into a nice jet flow, it sort of swirls around. And sometimes it swirls around these little open spaces and forms little clots. So one of the biggest problems that people have with atrial fibrillation, they form these little thrombi, because there are multiple of them. And these thrombi, then if they leave the heart, they could go to the brain, cause a stroke. They could go to the toes and stuff like that, and the fingers. They will actually cause them to lose their blood supply. So, but basically a single clot would be called a thrombus. Multiple clots would be called thrombi. If the singular form of a word ends in ma, change the ma to mata. So, fibroma. Fibroma is basically like a scar. It's a collection of a lot of fibrous tissue as a mass. It's not in a specific fibroma. It's not cancerous. Okay, there are some malignant degenerations where it may become malignant. They give it a little bit different name, but a fibroma would be just this. It's almost like a scar type of a tumor. Okay, called a fibroma. Some people get them on the bottom of their foot, along the arch. Some people get them in the palms of their hands. Okay, and these are little small little palmar fibromas, which would be in the hand, or plantar fibromas in the bottom of the foot. So a singular would be fibroma. But a lot of times these fibromas don't occur as one, but they occur as multiple. There's a situation where there's a neurological problem called a neurofibroma, where they get these little fibromas around the area of nerves, and there's multiple of them. You actually see these people They have little bumps on their faces all over. If you ever see someone with multiple little bumps that look like they're called cafe au lait spots. They're sort of like a tannish, fleshy color, but they look firm, and that's one of the things we would see with the neurofibroma. But fibroma would be a single lump, but if we have multiple, it would be called fibromata, more than one. So I've changed the fibroma to fibromata. Fibroma would be singular, fibromata would be plural, multiple little fatty fibromas. Okay, that means fibromata. But these are just a couple of the rules we have, and you know, sometimes we don't even change a word at all. Sometimes the singular is the same as a plural, and that could happen as well. But you'll see more of these later on as time goes on. But these are a few little special arrangements, the special little rules that sometimes occur in regards to making a particular word, a singular word, a singular noun, a plural noun. Okay, so not a whole lot to think about here. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but we have to tell you about it. So anyway, that's all we have for today, and uh, I wish you all the best. Hope you've been studying pretty hard, learning a lot, and stay healthy. Stay safe by being safe. Okay, we'll talk to you later.